Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing? Everyone doing all right? I hope so anyway. Drink Milk says, I want Cred to have a wifey, many children, and a happy life. Who doesn't want that? Everyone wishes that for Cred. Give me a sec. Okay. All good now, all good now. I hope everything's working. I think it is, but let me know. Bunch of stuff to talk about, so we'll jump into it in a second. So, okay. But before we do, obviously gotta shout out the sponsor of the show, which is FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio. Really appreciate their support. They have the best mobile app in crypto, in my opinion. So if you do any of that stuff, you should check them out. Their link is in the description. And I'm not saying that because they're sponsoring us. My words cannot be bought. So I really think they have something cool. So yeah. Check that out if you want to. I personally don't do much of mobile phone trading, but yeah, if you do, it's one of the better ones. Okie doke. Yeah, we will talk about the choppiness of the market. We'll talk about a few altcoins if you guys want to, and then we can do whatever you guys feel like. Hey Doug, hope you're doing well. I'm doing excellent. Back to the gym. Still feeling the COVID a little bit, as in like the after effects, but nothing major. So just had to go down like 20% on every lift and take it easy. But I think that's gonna pass relatively soon. So yeah, doing quite well. Thanks for asking. So yeah, Bitcoin. We've been ranging for a while. I know like this is always the same thing. I've talked about pretty much like the chart hasn't really changed in a while, and I talk about it every single time. But I still think it's important. Like people lose track of it. This is still, even though like it's less and less, but it's still the kind of leading indicator for the market. Bitcoin does poorly. Altcoins might do well for like a little bit, but on average, and it's obviously not the case that every single altcoin is going to dump if Bitcoin dumps. It's just not how the market works anymore, which is really nice. But on average, altcoins follow Bitcoin at least a little bit, at least for a short while, right? So we have to talk about it. We also have to talk about ETH, and then we can do whatever. So yeah, Bitcoin and its choppiness, right? I've kind of been talking about this for a while. I've predicted that Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin, would be really boring this year. And so far, I've been right. Who knows if that's going to stay like that, but I think it will. I'm reasonably certain that this is going to be a boring period for Bitcoin, which is nice, right? If you look at this biasless without like you thinking about having a position in crypto and everything, we need these times of consolidation, right? This was like a long time of consolidation, and then we had a 10k to 60k or almost 70k move, right? So you get your gains, and this is, by the way, like something that is almost across all markets the case. You get your gains on a few days of the year, right? So like most of the time it's just boring, and then if you miss like the 10 best performing days, you almost miss the entire year, right? And I think that's also the case for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just grown so large that it's not like it's just gonna do whatever it wants to. We've been following the S&P relatively closely lately. I actually want to talk about that in a bit. Remind me if I forget. So yeah, Bitcoin is probably gonna do the same thing, right? As in go sideways for a long time and then have like a really good 10, 20, 30 days and then be boring again. And the sideways range that I'm looking at is obviously 30 to 60K, right? It's just the nearest support. Furthest resistance, I mean, it just makes sense. This is basically where we started breaking down from, had a fake out above, which makes me more confident that 60K is going to be a really, really strong resistance, and that like everyone that bought that top is going to feel immense pain. And I think if you bought 60 to 70K, where you're going to capitulate on that is 30K, right? You lose half of your money. If you're not used to this market, that's usually where you're like, okay, fuck this. And that would be a nice place to buy, right? 30K. So that's what I'm looking at primarily. Obviously, with the resistance here in place, the resistance of like this head and shoulders thing, however you want to call it. I'm not the biggest pattern guy. I don't really mind. Just calling it the horizontal support resistance line. But yeah, obviously been struggling with that. And you can see this on the lower time frames. Let me quickly show you that. This is the weekly resistance. We overshot it a little bit, immediately pulled back, and then you can see these 3 or 4 days where it just iron walled basically, couldn't get through, and then sold off a little. So like these weekly levels do have an impact on lower time frames as well. But yeah, that has obviously been restricting price a little bit. That said, most of the recent price action just has been a mirror of the S&P. So you look at the S&P, that also had a range fake out and is also moving to the range low. Obviously much smaller moves, and the S&P actually performed much better than Bitcoin. And the best way to see this is actually by just comparing the two, obviously. So how you can do that, if you want to do these kind of charts yourself, you want to compare one coin to another. You just type in S&P, for example, in this case, against the dollar, and then divide it by Bitcoin against the dollar, and then you get your comparison, right? Dollar obviously cancels out, so you just compare Bitcoin to the S&P. And you might be saying, okay, this has been moving a little bit, right? But realistically, if you zoom out, what's been happening is this has just been going sideways. So Bitcoin, like this is Bitcoin outperforming, right? And now it's just been basically trading sideways. And the S&P has actually performed better than Bitcoin has in recent time. As you can see from this bounce. It's not too big, right? I mean, it's big in percentage terms, but it's not too big in historical terms, but still. And I think that's probably gonna continue for a while. I could see this just be like a range where it goes like this and just goes sideways for a while. But I'm not like a traditional market kind of guy. I just focus on Bitcoin. And the reason why, like, I think there's a lot of people that try to trade right now that are edgeless is because of this relationship. When you have Bitcoin kind of copy paste the S&P, you can have an edge in the crypto markets that you obviously wouldn't have in the S&P. And then you just trade the S&P basically by trading Bitcoin. And then you're wondering why your shit doesn't work anymore. And the reason is that you're basically trading a different market. So like if you've been wondering, okay, why does my like lower time frame stuff doesn't work? Like why does it not work anymore? Or in general, like why has it been so choppy? Reason is we've been following the traditional markets. So yeah, that's that. So depending on where the traditional markets go, this could go up a little, could obviously go down a little as well. But the fact of the matter is that we're still in the high time frame range. And when you're in a high time frame range, you expect the extremes to be hit, or you don't even have to expect them. You just have to be ready to buy and sell the extremes. And then everything in the middle is just whatever. You can trade it if you want to. I'm not saying you cannot. I'm just saying it's not my favorite place. So yeah, that's that. Hope it makes sense. I think there's not that much more to say. One thing, this support is really, really good. Even though we've been testing it twice already. I still think if we do go back down there, like if you're expecting 20K or 17K, if this breaks down, I think you're sorely mistaken. I think if you get 30K, you're quite lucky. And then, I mean, if you're bearish, you would want to see something like this and then it fizzle out. But I don't think you would ever want to bet on not getting a bounce from 30K. And that's not something I'm going to do anyway. Like if we go to 30K, I'm going to be buying that. And if it falls through, it falls through. But in my experience trading this market, you'd be stupid not taking that opportunity. So yeah, that's that. I think Bitcoin's pretty straightforward. Any questions about it, or should I move on? Because I mean, ETH is something to talk about as well. Not really super interesting, but it is something to talk about. COVID, no cognitive decline. When I had COVID, jumping back and forth on topics here, but yeah, when I had COVID, I had brain fog. I was pretty slow on the mental front. Not like I'm very fast mentally anyway, but it inhibited me more than usual. So yeah. Hey man, first time I've managed to catch a live stream. Love this content. Love you being here, my friend. Appreciate it. We need to liquidate Chimpsu first. I mean, yeah. Lower time frames, please. The thing is, right, and it's a valid question, right? And I can pull like the daily time frame up, and we can draw lines. But the fact of the matter is, and this is something that you have to know what kind of environment you're trading in right now. And I explained this like a little bit earlier, but I can explain it again. We're basically mirroring the S&P. The only difference between the two is that Bitcoin's actually weaker, right? So I showed you the comparison earlier, and on the comparison, the S&P divided by Bitcoin was going up, which means that the S&P is outperforming, right? But other than that, like most of this stuff is very, very similar. So lower time frame analysis, you can draw lines and stuff, but you might as well draw them on the S&P. And I don't really trust TA too much in this market. So anything that isn't macro right now is mostly, I think, edgeless. So if I draw you lines on the daily or even lower, I don't think there's much edge in there. So I don't really think that's to your benefit. That's why I don't. I'm more than happy to do it when the S&P isn't as correlated, or like Bitcoin isn't as correlated to the S&P. But I think you're basically wasting your time trying to analyze the low time frames, at least with TA, because it's basically trading the S&P just weaker, right? So you could be looking at the S&P, look for short signals, and then short Bitcoin because Bitcoin's going to go down more. That's basically how it has been. And until that changes, why change that strategy, right? So I don't think there's much to be done on Bitcoin on the lower time frames right now. Sorry to disappoint. So I can draw lines there, and I mean there's a bunch that you can draw that aren't too terrible, right? You have support down here, you have resistance up here, or like this isn't a bad one either. It's basically like you had all the price resting on top of here, one fake out, and we talked about this stuff, right? You have a fake out that's bearish, usually goes back to range low. It's actually exactly done that. And then if you get back to that fake out, it's usually bullish, and that's what we got here, right? And that area acted as resistance again on the lower time frames. But that's as zoomed in as I'm going to give you, because that's like the last areas where you can actually still draw something that isn't just drawing lines on the S&P. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. Where's Cred? Cred does this show on Monday. I do it on Wednesday, and then we do it together on Fridays. So if you're here for cred, I'm sorry to disappoint. Do you think price will hit 200 EMA on weekly time frame? I don't even know where that is, and I don't really care. But we can look if it's anywhere where I think it could hit. But I don't think it's. I mean, I know. Nah, I don't think so. I think like if it goes down, the line would be here somewhere. I think it would bounce, and then maybe it goes sideways for a while. But I don't think so. I think if you're bearish, you'd basically expect it to be hit, and then you can bid it. But it's not. This is not something I follow personally. It has been nice here, but it's been useless ever since. And yeah, it's not something I follow religiously. But you can look at it. I don't think it's going to get hit anytime soon, though. It's not something I'd expect. I think 30K, I'd be very, very surprised if that didn't give us a bounce. It's already asking for a lot for price to go down to 30K. So why target 25 straight up the bat? It could hit it. But I think if it's going to hit it, it's going to hit it after having a big, big bounce. Keyboard Monkey mentioned something about looking for S&P 500 gap down at some point, inducing wash down, pushing Bitcoin lower, and then loading up. Guess this 30K is widely watched. Yes. It's pretty much like everyone that I've talked with that has been trading Bitcoin on higher time frames is looking at 30K. I'm reasonably certain that that's going to hold for a bit, unless the S&P just... Like if the S&P, and this is something that we're trading crypto, but if this happens, like if this just completely full nukes, we're going to be fully nuked as well. If the S&P goes anywhere close to like where it has been before COVID started, I mean, if we go anywhere close to lows again, which I don't think we're going to do, but if we do, right, and this is like, it's useless to talk about because it's just complete speculation. But if we go to 2K on the S&P, Bitcoin is going to go to 20 or 15. So, yeah. That is something that just happens. If the global markets melt down, Bitcoin isn't going to be the one that just sticks out and just maintains bid. Just not going to happen. But we take it one day at a time, and we're not expecting the S&P to fully melt down. I don't think that's worth... that's a worthwhile kind of time investment thinking like that. So you want to take it slowly. And if it does happen, I mean, I think it's good to have some money on the sidelines, but that's just me. Any reason why you look at the S&P and not at the Nasdaq? Seems like the latter is more correlated with risk. The S&P has just been really good, and most people that I know that trade bigger size watch the S&P. I haven't actually looked into which one trades better, but they're probably both really correlated. If the S&P dumps 50%, crypto will dump 80 to 90. Very, very possible. But like I said, you're wasting your time there. If you're expecting that, then I mean, might as well not be in any markets. And then historically, it's not paid out, right? It's happened once. This kind of dump happened once, and then we had the financial crisis, which wasn't as sharp as this one. So I could see it happen again. The global markets are completely out of whack, but expecting it when you have like this is basically like this is something that happens every few years, and from 2008 to basically 19, we didn't have any. And if you're just sitting there waiting for something like this the entire time, you're missing out most of the time. So yeah, ETH's actually really, really interesting because it looks like shit, and I hate to say it because I own a bunch of NFTs. basically I bought ETH at 2.7. We talked about this. I bought ETH at 2.7, 2.8 down here, and it went up and I was euphoric, and then it started going down and I was like, I don't like this, and I just bought NFTs with it, and then ETH dumped, so kind of the ETH value went down. But the good part for me was I got some NFTs anyway that went up in ETH. So I have more ETH, but ETH value went down. And ETH BTC looks shit, so I could see the same happen again. I could also see NFTs take a big hit, honestly, but not willing to sell just yet. I'm gonna hold my NFTs, which might be the biggest top signal ever. But yeah, I don't like the ETH BTC chart right now. It's basically the same thing that Bitcoin did. Fake out above the range into resistance on this one even, and now lost the range and is trading back below it. So ETH BTC not looking good. If you were completely unbiased and you were looking for a trade, you would look for 0.05 down here. So like the completely technical, unbiased trader would take a short at 0.077. Stop loss up here, short here, target down here. That's like a good risk reward. What I'm doing is holding it, which is basically doing the opposite, which is stupid. But it's the only way to hold NFTs. And I still think there might be room left for my NFTs to moon. So being a little bit greedy here, but I could fall on my nose, and I'm fine with that. If everything goes down, if my ETH position goes down 50% and my NFTs go down 50%, so be it. It's not like I've bet the house, right? And I already de-risked by selling Bitcoin at 60K. So that's my cope. It's my cope. Sorry for making you listen to my cope, but that's kind of what I'm telling myself to be able to sleep. So yeah, that's like ETH, not good, really not good. Even ETH USD, I mean, I'm saying this at ETH USD support, right? So it could bounce, could go up, could go down. No, but I think it could bounce here. But even if it bounces, the best sell that you're ever going to get is 3.9K, and that seems like a massive reach. That seems like a massive, massive reach. I think if we're bouncing, we're probably gonna get stuck at 3.3K again. If you're even managing to get that far. The only way I could see us get to 3.9K is by actually breaking down. Maybe to 2.7, maybe to 2.5, and then sharply reversing out, which then I think would take us to 3.9. That would be the most bullish setup here. Right now, I don't think we have the momentum to just kind of push up to 3.9, and everyone would be more than happy to sell at 3.9 right now. If we shake out, I don't think that would be the case, because the people that would buy down there would hope for higher, would be fine with holding higher. And then I still think at that point we'd find resistance at 3.9. So that's kind of what I'm looking for on ETH. It's just, we have a support here that's been tested a bunch of times, 3 weeks. If you remember me talking about how I didn't like this, right? I'm sure some of you were around. Some of you watch the stream from time to time. I was saying I don't really like the 4K support being tested so many times. I really don't like it, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, everyone got a chance to get filled at 4K. Sellers apparently were more interested in selling than buyers were interested in buying. And it's starting to shape out the same way, right? We keep on touching the same support. Doesn't make me too bullish. So yeah, hope this turns out a different way as it did at 4K. I would definitely not be buying this support. I'm just holding, basically. And usually I would be in a hedge short from 3.8K, basically the moment the weekly closed below support. But given I don't short anymore, I'm just taking the loss on the ETH USD position. So yeah, not not too pretty, honestly, and it's a little bit of a confluence to my Bitcoin outlook, because Bitcoin doesn't look good, right? And that's one thing. When Bitcoin looks bad, it's like, okay, it's more likely to go down if it looks bad than up, but it could still go up. But when Bitcoin and ETH, and especially when Bitcoin, ETH BTC, and ETH USD have bearish setups, starts getting troublesome. Right now, ETH BTC has a bearish setup, ETH USD doesn't. But if this week closes basically below here, then that would change as well. Then we would have like the holy trifecta of various setups on Bitcoin, on ETH, and on ETH BTC. So yeah, I would expect at that point price to break down, shake people out, and then hopefully come back up again. Where are you getting your NFT alpha? These is really good. Moon is a friend. There's a bunch of places. Most of the time, what I do is just I kind of buy stuff that I find interesting. But yeah, those two, Moon Overlord, they've been doing well in the NFT space. I've been kind of copy trading these a little bit, and that's been doing not bad. And Moon, I value his opinion as well. So those two, and then my own stuff, which is admittedly just me buying stuff that I think doesn't look completely hideous. Most of the stuff looks completely hideous, but if it's at least only hideous, usually a decent buy. So yeah, Keyboard Monkey, I like Keyboard Monkey as well. It's not like I copy trade him, but I do value his opinion as well. How much will the Fed tempering affect the market? I'm not a traditional kind of guy, but what we've been basically saying is don't fade the Fed, and the price has been going up. And now they're basically doing the opposite, or at least telling us they're going to do the opposite of what they've been doing. And you would expect the same to be true, right? You don't want to be fading them. And now if you're bullish, you're fading them. The entire bull market was basically don't fade the Fed. Now, whatever this is, I don't want to call it a bear market too early, but I mean, you don't want to be counter trading the Fed, right? So yeah, just they could reverse their position, obviously, but temporarily at least, not good look. So yeah. I follow both of them, I guess. I don't pay enough attention to their tweets. I mean, sometimes you have to read between the lines, and sometimes they're wrong, just like everyone else. What I basically do when I listen to other people, right? And this is something you can use for charts. So even if you're listening to me, you kind of think, okay, are they making any sense? Do I like what they're saying? Do I agree with it? And do I think they have the connections in the right place? Because this does matter. Right? When you kind of look at who's tweeting what, do they have the connections to kind of maybe know insider information, or maybe just have like a little bit more info that I can get? And when you kind of find all of that out, and I'm not saying any of those have it, it's just how the market works, right? A bunch of people have like special info, and sometimes you can take advantage of them knowing. They're obviously not going to say it, but you can read it. Relatively obvious when that is the case. And sometimes they just have like a strong opinion because they like something. And then you kind of take their opinion, take whatever you think made them tweet what they tweeted, and kind of factor it into your own analysis, right? Someone recommends something to you, you look into it yourself, and then you have to also think, okay, do they know something that I don't? Do they know something that they're not telling me, or do they have like a vested interest or whatever? All of that kind of stuff you have to think about a little bit. And yeah, it's basically like reading someone else, and you get good, like better and better at it the longer you go and the better you know people. just joined. How do you think ETH looks? Like shit, my friend, like shit. But hopefully it bounces from the support, but not entirely sold on all of this. With regards to like ADA has been bouncing and people have been celebrating it. And I think ADA is like an interesting, I hate to say this. It's an interesting platform play where you can make DeFi stuff and you can make NFT stuff happen there. I don't like ADA, but I think there's gonna be a bunch of people that got rich in this pump that have money to spend, right? So the platform is gonna be one where at least a few people have a bunch of money and they're going to play around. So you could take some of that money from them. So it's something that especially if you're trading smaller size, should be looking into. Don't blame me if you get stuck in like scams, because most of the times with these platforms, that's just how they play. But there could be some short-term opportunities there. Long-term, I think you should not be investing in this. But short-term, there might be some. Right now, the chart for ADA, at least against Bitcoin, looks kind of shitty. We had a week of pump. Hisaka tweeted about it. We got a bunch of news so far that there hasn't had much follow through and was right into resistance. So not entirely sold on this. If we close above this red zone that I just drew, I think there could be more upside. You could be targeting the up all the way up here or even up here. I don't think you should ever take it more than that. But that's a nice 50% gain. If it does close above red, I think that's the extended target. This is the less greedy one. The only reason why I'm mentioning it is because whenever we have the old coins, Moon, ADA being one of them, and then Litecoin moved a little bit, it's usually a bad sign for Bitcoin for whatever reason. Because most people, in my opinion anyway, the reason for that is that most people agree that Litecoin and a bunch of these others, be Bitcoin Cash, XRP, that those are trashy coins with no narrative, right? Litecoin has barely any narrative left. It was the test net for Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin isn't really interesting to most people anymore, so why would you even be buying the test net of it? So the narrative for Litecoin is pretty shitty, and I know Litecoin lovers will hate me for saying this, and they're gonna respond that Litecoin has so much in the pipes, but no one really gives a shit, right? And when those coins pump that don't really have a narrative, it usually means that people have squeezed out what they can squeeze out of the more interesting ones, and it's just like, okay, this is gonna rotate into the ones that haven't pumped. And that's usually not the case. The interesting stuff pumps and the not so interesting stuff gives you an exit bounce at best. So that's why usually when people move that far out, it's a bad sign because the market is overextending. And Litecoin pumped a little bit, not too much. Same with ADA, but like I said, ADA is a little bit of a different case because it was a fundamental play for more than it was like just okay, I'm gonna buy this because it hasn't pumped play. So that's fine for me still, but Litecoin pumping is not a good look. And a few of the other ones, we had Dogecoin Pump. The reason why this happened was because of Tesla news. Like some people found I think it was in the API of the merge shop of Tesla that they're going to accept Dogecoin, and the people from the Dogecoin subreddit took that as, okay, people are going to be able to buy Teslas with Dogecoin, which as far as I'm aware is not the case. So we had Dogecoin pump a little as well. So those are like the boomer coins. They've been moving, but just a little bit against Bitcoin. The not so boomer coins, sea of red today. Some of them have moved, but most of them just look pretty shit. And this is all already like a boomer list. I got this list I think I got it from Cred or made it. I don't know. I don't remember. But like a year ago maybe, and that was the cutting edge. And now you look at this and everything's just down, breaking supports. It's kind of nice to see that my resistance lines worked well enough on most of them. You can see how it was basically the same pattern every time. You have like a bounce, you overshot the bounce, and then you found resistance at that bounce area again, and then you just completely disappeared. And this might not look bad. I mean, it obviously does look bad, but it doesn't look like it's just completely went to zero. But the thing is, even from here, it's down 50-60%, right? So pretty rough on that front. Not really the biggest fan. Atom's been struggling a little bit as well, but I still like Atom just based on the BTC pair. What I'm basically doing, this is one of the ones that I'm more interested in than most of this list. What I basically think is that if Bitcoin wipes out, I'm going to get a really good entry on this. I could even see it fall back in the range. And I'd be happy to buy it on a Bitcoin dump. So I'm looking at Atom. I'm looking at all of these fancy new coins, but I think if Bitcoin dumps, and it seems more than likely at this point, I'm going to get much better entries. That's why I'm not too keen on buying right now. Someone asked for XTC. It's basically the same thing for me. I think if Bitcoin dumps, and this could take a while, we're in chop territory, so it's not gonna just go to wherever you want it to in a day. It's more likely to take longer than that. But once it shakes out people, I think a lot of this stuff is going to dump, and then you just check, okay, which dumped the least and which is the strongest on the bounce, and you buy those. But I like XTC as well. It's going to be an interesting play. I'm just waiting to pull the trigger, basically, because someone asked me for it anyway. So yeah, there's 3 altcoins that I'm looking at, but not ready to buy it. And I could be boomering the hell out of this, and they're just going to bounce from support and make me look like an idiot, but I'm fine with taking that risk. I think, and we wrote a really good newsletter about this topic yesterday. If you haven't read that, you should subscribe to trletter.com. It's really good. We write that every Tuesday. But basically what we said is that we're in a PvP market. There's not that much new money coming in, at least not into the majors, which means that basically we're all taking money from each other. And I want to take money from, I mean, it sucks to say, right? But from you guys or from other people in the market, once those people get forced to sell. And I think that's going to be lower. And when the market is in PvP mode, it just chops. And it just turns people crazy. And one of the best things you can do is just either improve your skill set, learn how to do fundamental analysis, learn to TA, learn to do whatever, or just enjoy your life. And I'd much rather enjoy my life than sit in front of the screen hoping for a move that might not come. I'm just bidding very low, which is Bitcoin 30K basically. And once that happens, I'm going to have a day to position myself, I think. So if Bitcoin dumps, there's going to be, it's going to do like a sharp reversal, I think, and then it's going to bleed back down. And then that time from that dump towards that bleed down is going to be roughly a day where you want to buy the bleed down if you get it. And so I'm not really too worried. Even if I'm out, I don't need to be in front of the screen because I can reach the screen in the time span of a day. Like the video for more relief bounces. I'm not even sure people want relief bounces, but I appreciate you saying that nonetheless. Because the thing is, like, most people, I think, want it to be done and over with. Like they want a dump into a strong bounce, and they'd feel much, much better about it. But the thing is, this is a market that is not going to give you what you want, which is painful. I know how it feels sitting there trying to force a trade when it's going sideways like this. It's agonizing. So yeah, are you bearish short term or markets in general? US equities are dumping based on rate cuts, and if so, what narratives and projects are you most bullish on going into 2022, 23? I'm not necessarily bearish on all markets. I think Bitcoin is going to range in this range. And I think we're going to trade at 30K. I think we're going to trade at 60K. So that's not really bearish. It's not really bullish either, obviously. But for me, that's kind of where I'm coming from. And the best and worst projects, I think in crypto, it doesn't really matter if a project is good or bad. In the long term, it does. But almost none of us have that time horizon. I have that time horizon for Bitcoin and ETH. I don't have it for the altcoins. So basically, I don't really care if it's too good of a project or a bad one, as long as I see other people like it. If I see that there's attention somewhere, that's where you want to get into. You don't want to get into something that's really good but has no attention, unless you're willing to wait for a long, long time and willing to just be very, very wrong. You're much, much better off in this market. This is basically all fueled on hype, right? The altcoin market is fueled on hype. And if the hype goes, the project usually goes down no matter how good or bad it is. So it's tough to say. I think in general, NFT projects are going to do really well. That's the sector I'm most bullish on. As like a market, I'm not necessarily bullish on any of the profile pictures people have, because I think most of them are hideous and I think most of them are overvalued as fuck. So that's kind of my long, short answer. I don't know. For that. But I think the NFT market is going to be the hottest market in 2022, 23. I think coins it's basically going to be, and I could be very, very wrong on this, so don't take it as gospel, but I think the NFT traders are going to call the boom, like the coin traders boomers for a while, and it's going to rile everyone up, but they're going to be right. So yeah, that's my opinion on that front. Seems like everyone thinks Bitcoin is going to 32K. Yeah, so it could go up. You can counter trade all the people that have been in the market for a long time thinking that. Just based on them thinking that, I don't think that's a good argument, but sure. And it doesn't have to go to 30K. I think there's a pretty damn high chance it's going to 30K, and I think there's a really high chance it goes to 60K, and you can make with that what you want, right? I could see this also go back up again for a while and then just start dumping just based on the S&P. But yeah, I'm gonna change my tune, and this is something I've explained in previous streams, that's why I didn't do it in this one, but I'm gonna change my tune if we start reclaiming 46K. I think that's a really, really big level, 46, 47. If we do that, I think 60K becomes much, much more likely than 30K. Right now, I think 30K is much, much more likely than 60K. Just based on the fact that we're trading below mid-range, below this resistance here, and momentum's been shit, and ETH BTC has a bearish setup, and Bitcoin has a bearish setup. So for me, it makes sense to be on the defensive side. But if you like kind of buying whenever stuff looks really, really bad, you could do that here because it looks really, really bad. It's just for me, I like to look for buys either when it looks like it's going to zero, and that's like, this is not looking like it's going to zero, or when it's actually showing strength. Those are the two kind of main trades that I take. How would it look like if it goes, how would it look like to me if I said, okay, it's going to zero, whatever, if I had that feeling, right? Or most people in the market would have, I think this would do it. If you see this and people are like, oh, this is a support that's been tested a million times, this would look really, really bad. This would look like it's going to 17K, and that's almost zero anyway. And I think that's where I'm more than happy to buy. Right now, it just looks weak. I don't buy into weakness. I don't buy into bleeds. It's not my area of expertise. Sometimes it does well, for sure. In this case, for example, I was actually bearish. Like we closed below this weekly, and I was bearish down here, and then I flipped bullish basically the moment we got the chat candle. So I was bearish at the bottom, and then we got a chat candle, and somewhere in this candle I flipped back bullish, and I could do the same thing here. Like who the fuck cares? Be real. Do you really think it matters if you bought 30k here or if you bought 33, 34, and then took it to 60k? I don't think most people, like, it matters, of course, but does it matter enough to warrant buying when the market looks this shit, and then risking to kind of get liquidated on? I'm not entirely sure, but that's something you have to kind of figure out yourself. And sometimes it does work, like fading these breakdowns, fading when it looks really, really bad. It's just most of the time it doesn't. So you have to pick your battles wisely. So yeah. Sir, when baby Doge, please? Never, man, never. You're not gonna get me to chart. Doge and Shiba are as far as I'm gonna go on that front, and those already paid me. Doge actually looks like it's gonna full retrace. At some point, it's gonna have a bounce like this, and then make a lower high, and people are gonna be euphoric again. I don't know if it's gonna be here, or if it's gonna be here, or if it's gonna be all the way back down here. It's gonna have big bounce and people are gonna be like super euphoric again, and it's gonna go all the way back to previous lows, in my opinion anyway. This is a down only market, besides that one exit pump that is relatively likely to come but not guaranteed. Someone said looks good. Probably kind of playing on the looks coin. I actually hold some of that. I mean, everyone does, just based on the airdrop. I got a bunch airdrop to me. I'm guessing you guys have too if you've traded any NFTs. You didn't even have to trade much to get a bunch of this. I'm pretty happy with the airdrop. I think the project, it's already quite at a high valuation. So if you're FOMOing into this, you gotta know that a bunch of influencers got this more than 20 times cheaper than the price even shown here. That said, that those coins are vested for 6 months, and so you kind of know when they're gonna start dumping. And I'm pretty bullish on everything that's infrastructure and crypto. I'm not as bullish on the staying power on the altcoins or NFTs or any of that stuff. So what you want to be taking is bets on the infrastructure of the market, or on Bitcoin and ETH, I think, long term. And anything beyond that is just short-term plays. So the reason why I think this is going up is just basically because it's a brain-dead infrastructure play. For the people that don't know what this is, it's an OpenSea competitor. It's not even close to being competitive right now, but people are betting on it being one, and I can see where they're coming from. I've staked all the coins that I got from the airdrop, and just gonna hold them forever. Basically, I don't really care about the money right now, and then we'll see if it does. Just 10% of OpenSea, it's going to be a really good bet. If it doesn't, it's going to go to 0, but it's an airdrop anyway. That's kind of how I'm treating it. But yeah, if it dipped further, like I was actually sitting there trying to buy it. If it dipped further than just going down to like 2 or 3, I would have actually bought a bunch, and like more than 10 times the airdrop. But it didn't give me good entry. I think it still has potential to go further up. Like I think the ceiling would be an 8x from here, but it could also easily drop down. It's already quite high up in the top 100, and it's not really too functional right now. but they're promising a bunch of stuff, and who knows if they're gonna be able to deliver or not. I don't have a big horse in the race, so I'm just cheering on for some of my fellow influencers on Twitter that got into the seed round and are up 50x or something now, I think. And I have a bunch of the airdrop, but it's not like it's significant money to me. Hey, I missed the beginning of the video. Can you recap how to spot reversals? We actually just went over it in passing, so it's a good reminder. So how do you spot when this chop shit is going to end? Because there can be really big bounces on the way, right? You have your range here, and you can bounce all the way to 46 and then still go down. Choppy stuff in general is not always like this. People always imagine like down chop markets like this, and then once the trend reverses, it just goes like this, and then they're like, okay, this is a choppy market. But this is actually like quite the clear market to trade, right? And this is very unlike most choppy markets. It's trading right like this almost to perfection right now, but I think we've not really entered the chop stage of the market yet, which is gonna freak people out if they hear me say it, because we've been chopping or like going sideways for a year. But this is still relatively clean. You have a high, you have a lower high, lower low, right? This is a downtrending market, and then you have an uptrending market. And then you could zoom out a little bit and say this is chopping, but it's not really too choppy. How these choppy markets go is a little bit more difficult. So you have like this, the same thing, but then, and this is where people get wrecked in these choppy conditions, is you have suddenly you make this and you make a higher low basically, and people start wondering, is this it? And then it goes up a little and it just completely dumps. And that's just how choppy markets and PvP markets work, right? Because almost everyone in the market is going to be trying to take a bet on this higher low. And in these PvP markets, when you have too many people on the same side, it's just easy to take advantage of them, right? So how do you spot when it actually reverses, when you cannot really count on market structure to tell you so? For me, it's basically looking at the range, looking at the context as well, obviously on the traditional markets, but looking at this range. This is the best kind of context that we have. Where are we in this range? And I have a relatively high conviction that my range theory is right. It doesn't have to be though. And if it isn't, I'm going to be wrong. So it's not like you can 100% spot or you have 100% fail-safe method of spotting where the chop ends and where trending starts. But for me, given I have high conviction, I think we're gonna stop chopping or like trending down in a choppy direction at the bottom of the range or above the midpoint. Everything else you want to ignore. You want to see, like you see a low time frame. Look at this. You have a downtrend on the low time frames. You set a low, you set a high, you set a lower low, but then you reverse course, right? You make a higher high. You set a high here, you set a high here, this is higher. But what happened was you immediately set a lower low. And this is kind of how these choppy markets work, right? Everyone that's betting, trying to buy the dip, is getting completely rinsed. And because they're not doing business on high time frame areas. If you're doing business where a bunch of bigger guys are looking as well, the chances of choppiness at the level that you're trading decreases significantly, because you have a bunch of people kind of supporting your back, right? You're buying 30K, they're buying with you. They're kind of making sure that it doesn't fail. So you have like a guy sitting there basically supporting you. That is not the case in between. And how I think we're going to see the chop end completely, because this is just a low time frame chop, right? We go to 30K. I still think like we're gonna bounce and then the chop is going to be over the low time frame chop, but I think we're still gonna be chopping in this range. So the high time frame doesn't change too much. And how I think it's going to change is going to be by either wiping out below the range, doing basically the exact same thing that we did on the high, or just crossing back above the midpoint, which is when I'm going to take a trade towards 60K. And then once we actually reclaim 60K, I think there's a very, very small chance that we're going to reclaim 60K without going to 80 or 90 or even higher. So the chop is going to end either below the range. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, or above the range, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. So my prediction is that we're going to chop for a long time. But if you want to look for indication that the chop is ending, it's either strength above the range, like the macro chop, or it's a massive wipeout below the range, which I think is just a straight up buy. And then if it reclaims and kind of supports your thesis, then you can be reasonably certain that if you're going to get chop, it's going to be upwards chop. And that's fine with you if you're in a long, right? So that's like just based on the chart. Now you can also do it by other means, right? One of the means that I like best recently is just by checking, okay, is the S&P actually doing the same thing, or is there a divergence there? So if you see Bitcoin just suddenly start outperforming massively, and the S&P does this, and Bitcoin does this, and then maintains that for a while, even on the higher time frames, that's a good indication that the chop that we're going through, because the chop that we're going through is in part because of the traditional markets. So if that kind of invalidates, it's very likely to kind of stop chopping and start going up as well. Like start going up for real. Unless you're bear tart and you think this is the top and it's just going to trend down, then I mean, maybe you can expect a clean down trend at that point. Like if the S&P goes up and Bitcoin goes down, you can just expect, okay, this is going to zero, which I think you'd be a moron to still trade a market that you think is going to zero. But that's another story. So yeah, there's a few ways. You can either look for strength against the traditional markets. You can look at the range, the macro range that we're in, buy the range low, sell the range high, but still expect macro chop, or you can just do business at the range extremes, above the range where you want to be buying, or below the range where you want to be buying as well. Unless you're bear tart, then I don't even know. Like as a bear, it's really, really difficult to sell anywhere above 59K. If you're bear and you're selling a breakout or like trying to fade a breakout above 59K, I think you completely lost the plot. You're fine with selling at 59, 60K, maybe selling into a wick that forms up here, but anything beyond that is just completely stupid. So that's that. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. You can look at volume, you can look at a bunch of stuff, but that doesn't really, it's not important enough for me. Chop usually ends once it hits high time frame levels, once it hits pain points, once it hits actual interest, once it finds a place where people are interested enough in making it stop. Okay, so there you go. I think that answers the question, at least roughly. So the title isn't a clickbait. So yeah. Hope that helped. Any questions to that? Did I explain it properly? I hope you guys got it. If not, I'm sorry. Thoughts on exchange coins? It's the same kind of bet. It's a bet on infrastructure, so I don't mind it too much. I think exchange coins are a good bet in general, longer term even. Those are gonna stick around as long as you have trust that the exchange is gonna stick around. So you don't want to fade those. I think there's better coins to fade, as in to short. And if you want to be buying something, those are decent places to look. It's just they're not obviously not going to move as much as the new hot stuff. Exchange coins are boring. We all know that they're probably good. It's pretty much how crypto works. When almost everyone agrees that something is a good bet, it's going to move slowly. It's probably still going to do well in general, and it's probably going to perform well, but it's going to move slow. So you might be getting better gains somewhere else and then rotate those gains into the slow moving ones. That's basically what everyone does in crypto. Like, they try to make money with altcoins, and then they try to shift that money into Bitcoin, and then keep on trading the altcoins to make more Bitcoin. It's just how it works. Because at the end of the day, we're all pretty damn certain that Bitcoin, and I mean ETH's kind of fought for the spot as well. I'm fine with saying the same for ETH, that they're not gonna go away, and that's why it's basically the same for exchange coins, just on a little bit lesser level, right? Because exchanges can go bust. It's happened before, so there's a little bit more risk in those. That's why they're probably gonna outperform Bitcoin and ETH in the longer run ish. But there's also more risk involved. And then the further down you go into the nonsensical, the higher the upside, the higher the downside. Why do you still look at the Bitcoin pair, especially considering you want to stack fiat, not Bitcoin, long term as a trader? The reason why is because if I'm not looking at the Bitcoin pair, I might as well just trade Bitcoin, right? So if I'm not expecting, I look at EOS, for example, and I'm like, okay, this is hideous. I don't want to be trading this. This is down only against Bitcoin. If I wanted to look for something to short, this would be somewhere that I would be looking, because I know this is historically just generally outperformed by Bitcoin. Now I look at Eos USD, and I could be thinking, okay, I mean, this is decent to trade, right? This is ranging, whatever. I can take trades here, buy support, sell resistance. But the thing is, you saw the EOS BTC pair earlier. It's not really been doing anything. So if you bought support here and sold resistance, you might be happy that you made a 2x. But there's a good chance that even Bitcoin outperformed this. So why go down the risk curve and trade this if I can just trade Bitcoin? So what you kind of have to find is something that's going to outperform Bitcoin. Because you don't want to be the EOS USD pair. This doesn't look, on a grand scale, this doesn't look too terrible, right? It's just a coin that's been going sideways. Out of context. In context, this is a coin that's underperformed and not done anything in the last basically 3 years, even though the entire crypto space has mooned. And the Bitcoin pair gives you that context. The Bitcoin pair tells you, okay, I'm fine. So for example, with Link, this has been underperforming Bitcoin for a long, long time. Do I really want to be trading this, or do I want to look for something stronger? It's a pretty damn easy way to kind of see strength, because it's hard. If you look at Link on the USD pair, it's a little bit more difficult to see, okay, is this actually strong or not? And that's why I look at the BTC pair. For me, it's easier to spot strength and weakness. It's just not following. It's basically just taking the Bitcoin out of the equation. And then you can still take the trade on the USD pair, but you have to spot the trades that you want to be taking, in my opinion anyway, on the Bitcoin pair. Otherwise, you're doing yourself a disservice. And the coins that have been looking the most bullish on the Bitcoin pair have been the strongest movers. It just makes sense. And that's why I usually look at the Bitcoin pair. I also look at the USD pair, and when I take trades, I usually enter and exit based on the USD pair. But the relative strength, or the original trade idea, usually comes from Bitcoin, from the Bitcoin pairs. Hope that makes sense. It's a little bit of a boomer approach, but almost every single fund I've spoken with, every single person that trades big size has kind of been reaffirming what I've just said to me, that they're doing the same thing. I don't know why that is necessarily. You can do the same on the USD pair, but it's just, maybe it's just because most of the bigger guys just have been around for a while and just are comfortable looking at the Bitcoin pairs. But most people with size just like it better that way, and I tend to agree. It's not because I want to be one of them. It's just because it seems easiest to me. But if it's easier for you to spot strength on the USD pair, be my guest. And you always have to look at both. It's just, for me, if I scroll through, it's easier to spot the strength on the Bitcoin pair. Head and shoulders on XRP BTC weekly. Do you see it? Yep, I did see it. I still want to take the XRP trade. It's just right now. But you're basically, this is what you're saying. Actually, let me load this up on Poloniex. You're talking about this one. Well, let me actually draw this. So you have the left shoulder here, the head, and then the right shoulder here. And this is, if you remember back, this is where I took my last XRP trade. My last significant one anyway. Where I was like, okay, people are going to look at the head and shoulders, and it's gonna pump based on that. Basically, people are going to expect this to go up, and that's what happened. It's not necessarily huge movement for altcoins nowadays, but 50% is 50%. The problem is right now, and the funny thing is, I'm not entirely sure if you're talking about this one or actually talking about this one, right? But the funny thing is, like, we're basically doing something that I don't like to see, which is chill on the support for too long. This is a nice test. This is like somewhat okay still, and it's starting to get like a little bit worrisome. So what I want to be seeing for XRP is actually a failure and a reclaim. Not entirely sure if I'm going to get that. But I think XRP is going to be an interesting one based on the lawsuit that is going on. It's rough chart wise right now, but this could pump anytime. Anytime we get news on the lawsuit and everything that's going around. So I think there's a play to be made on XRP. It's just chart wise, it's too bad for me to take one right now. But I'm going to take one at some point. It's just, I would like the chart to look a little bit better. Maybe some insiders on the XRP front do me a favor and paint the chart in a nice way before something comes out. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not good enough. Like risk reward wise, it's really tough to nail this one. So yeah, I think that's more than enough. I went to the gym today, so first time in a while. Like I've been climbing, but I've not went to the gym, and I'm feeling it. Not from like the muscles, but from the tiredness. And I think that's in part due to COVID. So I'm gonna take it easy. Not gonna stick around for too long. We already did like 70 minutes, so I think that's plenty. But I appreciate you guys coming by. Always fun. Always some nice ideas in the chat. Especially appreciate everyone that's kind of involved in making this happen, which is all of you guys that just chill around and chat, ask nice questions, give good comments, makes it easier for me and also makes it more interesting, I think, for everyone that's watching. So appreciate that. Also appreciate the sponsor of the show, which is FTX. Their links are in the description. If you want to check them out, you should. And yeah, we'll see each other next Wednesday, or if you really can't wait that long, I'll be on the weekly open with Luke, Ledger, and Josh on Monday. So if you wanna see that, you should check that out as well. But yeah, just me on Wednesday again. See ya, guys. Bye bye.